So I have a question for everybody here. Why exercise? Okay. I mean, so maintain your strength. Okay, so here's an interesting fact or query that I'm going to throw out to you. So how much would you pay for a pill that, if you did it regularly and routinely, would decrease your risk for cancer, bladder cancer, lung cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer? How much would you pay for a pill that, if you did it regularly and routinely, would decrease your risk for type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, cerebrovascular disease, stroke, MI, depression, urinary incontinence, fecal incontinence, loss of libido? Yeah. All right. And well, let's put more in there because we're not quite yet done. How much would you pay for that pill if would also decrease your risk for cognitive impairments? Zero. And it would decrease your risk for all of those things, and that's just a few of them, by 30 to 40%. And that study has been done both in the United States, Europe, and Canada. And what's really scary is no matter what patient population we look at, the data holds up across the world. Men, women, Asian, Eastern European, Western European, Central European, US, Canada, doesn't matter. How much would you pay for a pill that, if you did it a couple of times a week, would further decrease your risk for all of those things and dramatically decrease your risk for osteoporosis, and also help control your blood pressure and your type 2 diabetes even better? Because adding in resistive strength training gives you about another 10 to 15% diminution in all of those risk factors. So by doing a combination of aerobic activity and strength training, we can decrease the risk of getting those diseases by 40 to 50%. Pretty scary when you look at the numbers, right? It doesn't mean you won't get hypertension, but what it does mean is if you have hypertension, because you can't outrun your gene pool, you might only need one medication to control it as opposed to 2, 3, or 4. Or despite 2, 3, and 4, you still don't have it under good control. It might be that you might still get type 2 diabetes because, again, you can't always outrun your gene pool and sometimes cookies win. But it might be easier to control. Now, why would exercise, and particularly strength training, be so dramatically helpful for reducing and controlling your type 2 diabetes? Anybody want to hazard a guess? More muscle, more calories burned to a degree, and you're right. So if you use your muscles for strength training, muscles are funny. They like glucose. And the glucose is in your blood. And it's got to go from the blood to the muscle. Well, if it's getting taken up by your muscle, it's not floating around in your bloodstream, and your serum glucose level goes down. Turns out strength training is even better than aerobic training for helping to modulate your blood sugars. So my patients with type 2 diabetes who romp around with hemoglobin A1Cs of 9 and 10, and they're like, Dr. Dubin, I know I see you for my peripheral neuropathy, and I see my endocrinologist, and they're playing around with all of my meds, and I'm walking like a fiend. I'm walking 3 miles a day, 6 days a week, and my hemoglobin A1C is still 9. I must be doing something wrong. I said, no, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just not doing it all right. take up a little bit of strength training. Make your muscles work. And they come back and they go, this is really weird. I've been doing this for 6 months and my latest hemoglobin A1C went from 9 to 7.3. I go, right, keep doing it. And they go, but that's so simple. I go, yeah, it is, but it works. Why does it work so much better than walking? Well, you're using big muscles when you walk. How efficient are we with our walking? Assuming we don't have big-time neurological problems, big-time osteoarthritis problems, when we walk, and we just get out and we walk, and we're walking with friends, and we're walking at a pace where you can carry on a conversation.
It's not aerobic.
And that's the key. Most of us go out and we take the walk and we're carrying on the conversation with our friends and we're not having to stop to catch our breath as we're going. We are not really in that state where we are significantly stressing the system. To put it into perspective, when you get dressed in the morning and you put on your pants and your blouse or your shirt and your bra and your undies and your socks and your shoes, we call that activities of daily living. And we have a term of metabolic equivalence, how much energy we use to do that. And it turns out, for most activities of daily living, you burn somewhere between 2.5 and 3.1 METs. When you go out for a walk with your friend and you're chatting about where we're going to go for lunch or what we're going to do after we're done walking, and you're able to carry on that conversation and chat, turns out, because you're walking at community velocity, your metabolic equivalent, your energy expenditure, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3.4 METs to 3.5 METs. It's not much, it's not a whole heck of a lot more than getting dressed. And if you think getting dressed is going to get you into shape, unless you've got weights attached to your pants, you're not getting too far too fast. So you're right. You've got to go ahead and walk at a pace where you've got to be able to not carry on a conversation easily. You've got to be able to go, got to sort of clip your sentence in order to be able to tell people what you want, and that's how you know you're walking fast enough. Here's a really scary thought. How many METs does it cost you to stand in a shower under the hot water, doing nothing, just standing there in the shower, minding your own business, looking at the water coming down at you from your rain? It's more. You expend more than walking at a community velocity. Here's why. You're standing up. And the hot water causes vasodilatation, so blood pools in your legs. And in order to maintain your blood pressure so you don't get wobbly and fall over, your heart rate has to go up. And it turns out it costs you about 3.5 to 4 METs just to stand there in the shower.
What about cold?
What's that?
Cold water.
Cold water, you'll still have a bit of... Cold water, what happens with that is you vasoconstrict, and your blood pressure goes up, and you get piloerection, goosebumps. That also raises you up, but not as much as hot water, strangely enough. Now, most of you have hair on your head. This is good. I don't have any hair on my head. But if you have hair on your head and you get the shampoo out and you start doing this, oh my goodness, you're somewhere up around 4.5 METs worth of activity. That's like climbing a flight of stairs. So if you really want good exercise, stand in the shower and wash your hair for a half hour. Or pretend you're washing your hair. It's great aerobic activity. It's not great for strength training, though. Now, there is one downside to exercise. Only one. So we said all these great things that can happen with exercise. The only downside to exercise is there are a number of studies that show people who engage in extreme exercise, ultramarathoners. How many ultramarathoners do we have here? Okay. People who do like the crazy man, Ironman triathlons and do multiple a year. We got like one or two in the audience probably.
They're in their 20s.
Well, they're in their 20s, and that's the group that actually has a higher incidence of getting ALS. The only group of patients that have never been diagnosed with ALS are true 100% couch potatoes. Turns out if you're a couch potato, you don't get ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. However, it dramatically increases your risk for all the other things that regular exercise decreases your risk for. So if you're worried about getting ALS, which is only about 1 in 50,000 people, don't exercise at all. But if you're more worried about osteoporosis, hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease, stroke, exercise is good for you. Now, we're going to have a little fun here. I'm going to see if this works. Hey, it works. Scary concept. I'm going to throw a question out to you. Is exercise good for your bones? Why is it good for your bones? Lubricates. Lubricates joints, right. You bend the joint, the synovial fluid runs around to the left, to the right, up, down. You lubricate the joint. It helps remodel, not necessarily rebuild, but remodel, yes. What else? Bone density. How does it increase bone density or help maintain bone density? If I knew that, I would be up here talking. You're up here, though. Well, it turns out that that's partly it. But interestingly enough, it's not just the mechanical cyclical pounding of, because to do this, something else has to happen. Muscles have to work. So here's an interesting phenomenon. Your thigh bones, your femurs, big weight-bearing bone. Is it a straight bone or does it have a curve? It's got a curve. Your tibia, that big old bone at the bottom that most of your weight goes through at your knee joint. Is it a perfectly straight bone or does it have a little curve to it? It's got a curve. So somebody was thinking, there's a reason that we should put a curve in long bones. He or she was really smart. It's probably a she. Because women are smarter than men. My wife tells me this all the time. And she is the brains of the operation. She's got a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, so she knows everything. And I defer to her. There's a reason why we have a curve in a long bone. And we're going to start to discuss this in the aspects of strength training and bone health. Let's have a little fun. So we're going to take a bone, and we're going to put a little curve in that bone. All right? And we're going to go ahead and put a little knob here, a little knob there, because we call those epicondyles, condyles, trochlears, trochanters, which is the big technical term for a bump in the bone. And the bumps serve a really important purpose. Their job is to be places where muscle attaches. So we're going to put a tendon here and a tendon here, and I'm going to put a muscle in between. Now it turns out muscles are interesting. They're really designed to do one thing: generate tension, tighten up. And we call that a concentric muscle action. And a concentric muscle action, literally, is We do that. We shorten the muscle, and the muscle gets big. An eccentric muscle action is a strange one. That's a lengthening action. That's where I have you hold your hands like this, and I drop 50 pounds of weights in your hands, and I go, don't let the weight touch the ground. And you're struggling like crazy, and slowly gravity is winning as you're busy fighting it. And that muscle is generating tension while it's being lengthened. And that's damaging to the muscle. Now, if you're a healthy person and there's nothing wrong with your muscles, you walk around with delayed onset muscle soreness for the next 1 to 2 days, maybe 3. But then if you go back and keep doing that routine, it doesn't bother you anymore because the body adapts. If you have an underlying primary muscle disorder, you don't do eccentric strength training. You only do concentric work. We throw you in a swimming pool and we keep your arms and legs underwater. So no matter what direction your arms and legs are moving in, they're always pushing or pulling against the water. And you can't hurt yourself because it turns out concentric muscle activity never hurts your muscles. Only eccentric does. I'm a rower, and I did a crazy workout a few days ago, postural stability. And basically, you do a bunch of sets where you hold this very compressed position for an extended period of time, and then you row like a nut, and then you come back to that compressed position. And now my gluteus maximus, my hamstrings, and my hip adductors have been talking to me for the last 2 days. Yesterday, they were yelling at me. Today, they're just talking to me. Tomorrow, it'll be a whisper. And tomorrow, I will get back and do the same fool thing all over again, and it won't bother me at all because I will have adapted. So muscles, we want them to contract. What happens when we contract the muscle? Well, if we've got a bow in the bone, strange thing happens. This side of the bone gets placed under compression. It wants to kind of collapse. This side of the bone, the long side, is placed under tension. It wants to lengthen. And it turns out bone is a very dynamic structure. It's not this inviolate, what you see is what you get kind of creature. It is constantly remodeling because it is being exposed to cyclical loading through muscle activity hundreds and hundreds, thousands of times a day. And in fact, it's that muscle activity that's so important to maintain your bone health. And we know this because if we take spinal cord injured folks and we have them do static standing in a standing frame and all their weight's going through their legs, guess what they develop? Osteoporosis. It doesn't matter that the weight's going through their long bones. The muscles aren't working. Children that are born with hemiparetic cerebral palsy, half their body isn't getting the full neural supply, so that half of the body doesn't have the same muscle bulk and same muscle function. Guess what that hemi body has? Osteoporosis as they get older at a much earlier rate than the normal side. Stroke patients, you get a stroke and you lose function on one side of the body and it only comes back part way. That paretic side will develop osteoporosis at a faster rate than the non-paretic side. And if you already have osteoporosis, just further accelerate the problem. So strength training becomes key for this reason. We're going to compress one side and we're going to extend the other side. And it turns out when we do that, we have a bunch of little happy cells. And on this side, we have something called osteoblasts. There's a quiz at the end of this. And on this side, we have osteoclasts. And we also have blasts on this side and clasts on this side. Now, the osteoblasts are the guys that build bone. The osteoclasts are the guys that break bone down to help with remodeling. And you need both. Turns out on the compression side, we have more osteoblast activity than osteoclast activity. And on the tension side, we're more biased to the osteoclast side of the world. But both sides of the bone talk to one another. There are transmitters that the osteoclasts and osteoblasts and humeral transmitters that actually tell the other side what's going on and saying, build more bone on this side, thin me out a little bit more over here, I need to be more bendy. And then we ultimately get to the point, you go, no, okay, we're bendy enough, don't go any further, let's slow down the osteoclast activity, let's beef up the osteoblast activity so we don't get too bendy, and life is good. There's this constant dynamic dialogue going on. Now, how many of you are on bone building agents? Fosamax, alidronate, all the other wonderful stuff. How do they work? Oh, I just take it. But you notice you can't stay on them forever. You can only stay on them for a little while. Why? Because what they do is they downregulate osteoclast activity. And we bias the system towards osteoblast activity. You go, well, hold it, that's good, I'm building bone. But remember, bone is dynamic. It's got to have a certain amount of bend to it. If we shut down osteoclast activity, we lose bendiness. There's a technical term. And when we lose bendiness, we make a brittle bone. And it turns out that when patients are on these bone building agents for an extended period of time, this is why they keep you on them for a short period of time, we started to see increased incidence of spontaneous femur fractures. People would be walking down the street, minding their own business, talking to their best friend Esther, and suddenly down on the ground. No trauma, no nothing, the bone just broke because it wasn't bendy enough. And it failed under repetitive cyclical loading because it's brittle. And brittle bone doesn't tolerate cyclical loading well because it can't remodel. This gets really weird. So, my engineering colleagues, my father, may he rest in peace, and my engineering colleagues, they like to think they know everything. And they actually do. They're the real smart people. The rest of us just kind of play. And they said, when I started to explain this to my dad years ago, he laughed. He goes, oh, what you're describing is Young's modulus of elasticity. And I remembered my college physics and then my college mechanics and my advanced physics classes and everything. I said, you know, you're right. I am. So Young's modulus of elasticity basically says we can look at any substance, and pretty much every substance we have can behave in one of three ways, and it goes through the spectrum. It can behave in elastic deformation, which means I'm walking, I'm moving, I'm doing my thing. I'm constantly remodeling the bone, and no matter what I do, it always comes back to a stable original shape. Life is good. We're hanging out in elastic. If I give you a rubber band and I have you stretch it, you notice after a period of time it doesn't come back to its original length and shape. It stays a little stretched out. And what happened at that point is it's no longer in elastic deformation. It's now in plastic mode. And we start to see its structural integrity tail off in plastic mode. But life's okay. We keep stretching the rubber band and playing with it. If you're a girl, you stop playing with it because you noticed the rubber band changed color in one spot. If it was a red rubber band, it got a little pink in color. If it was a beige rubber band, it got a little bit lighter in color. And the girls, being smart, said, I'm not playing with that anymore. I know what's going to happen next. Boys, we're not bright. We continue to play with it. And not only do we play with it, we put it in front of our best friend's face. And we do this, and then unpredictably, it fails. Failure. Failure is when the bone breaks. All right? Now, that's what happens when we put you on a bone building agent. What happened is we prevented you from hanging out for an extended, where you should be, in elastic mode, and we progressively pushed you towards plastic. And if you stay on the bone building agents, because like they forget to take you off them or you forget to stop them, we unpredictably and calamitously go to failure mode. And then you go see my orthopedic colleagues who go out and go, we have a fix for that. We're going to put a big IM nail down your femur with a locking screw at the top and a locking screw at the bottom. And life is good. And I go, maybe yes, maybe no. Because here's the thing. All of the hardware they put in you has a finite life expectancy. And its structural integrity is dependent upon the bone ultimately healing. If the bone doesn't heal, excessive loads get transmitted to that device. And that device starts to bend a little bit. It's got micro motion. It doesn't like micro motion. And as micro motion progresses, it becomes macro motion, and it starts to move even more. And ultimately, it breaks. And then the orthopedic surgeon says, well, we got a fix for that. We're going to put a bigger rod down you, and we're going to put a plate on you, and we're going to give you bone graft. And if my late colleague, Dr. Jacobs, was still alive, who was a Methodist minister, he would also institute prayer at that point. He was a big believer in prayer, and it may have worked because he had a pretty good healing rate on stuff. So we can't knock prayer, but we would like to try to avoid this stuff. Now, I'm going to throw out a question for you. What is a stress fracture? So you're out and you're walking, and you're constantly walking, pounding, and one day the bone breaks. What's a stress fracture? Is that abnormal forces or is it bad bone? It's not bad bone, it's abnormal forces. So a true stress fracture, like shin splints, things like that, is the bone is normal. We've got abnormal loading mechanics, and we've pushed this system too far. So if we change the loading mechanics and make the muscle work more efficiently, the bone works better, and it heals up, everything is good. An insufficiency fracture, an osteoporotic fracture, is normal load breaks the bone. So you're not jumping up and down, you're not doing jump rope, things like that. You're not doing squats with a heavy weight. You just went from sit to stand in your couch and you broke your femur. That's an insufficiency fracture. Normal load on abnormal bone. That's where we need more exercise. After we fix the fracture and while the fracture is healing. Does this make sense? Now we understand why we need to exercise. So when we look at exercise, we talked about concentric work, shortening muscle action. That's your typical weightlifting. We grab a weight, we bring it up, and we let it come down. Eccentric is I give you a supramaximal weight, more than what you can lift concentrically, because you're stronger eccentrically than you are concentrically. Yeah. Turns out the maximum weight you can lift concentrically is less than what you can hold eccentrically. And here's how you know that. I can put you on a pull-up bar, put a block under you so that you've got your arms bent, kick the block out from under you and say, Lou, hold it. And you can hold it for a period of time before you slowly come down. But if I make you grab the pull-up bar and I go, okay, Lou, do a pull-up. Lou looks at me and goes, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Because he doesn't have the strength to pull himself up. That's concentric work. And in concentric work, you're only as strong as you are at your weakest point. So it doesn't matter that here you're really strong and I might be able to hold 75 pounds. Here, when I'm initiating the movement, because my muscle's really long and the myosin actin filaments aren't allowed a lot of cross-linking, I can't generate a whole lot of tension, so I can't pick up 75 pounds. I may only be able to pick up 45 pounds. Well, unless I'm going to cheat in the gym, nobody ever cheats in the gym. You've never seen anyone in the gym do this. Right. And they use momentum. And what they're doing is they're getting past their weakest point so they can lift up a heavy weight. Don't do that. That's dumb. Start with a lower weight and work your weakest point. And as your weakest point gets stronger, the weight will go up and you won't hurt yourself.
What is a wasted, like I'm doing the weight, if I do 5, is that not going to do anything for me? Like what is a minimum?
So, well, that's an interesting question. So if we go back to John Basmajian's work, here we're going to get technical, and we use the DeLorme principle, where you find out what your 1 rep max is. What's the maximum weight you can pick up one time, and then you work at 80% of that, which allows you to do a minimum of 3 to 5 reps in a set. The minute you get up to doing 7 to 8, up the weight.
3 to 5, you mean a set being 10 times 30?
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got a good weight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up the weight.
Okay.
1. Weight's too heavy. What's that?
What about the reps? Like they always say do 10 3 times, that kind of thing like that.
So again, if we go back to John Basmajian's work and the DeLorme principle, 3 sets with reps somewhere in the 5 to 8 range is really sweet. Now you can go up to 10, and I will tell folks, look, there is no harm in doing 15 repetitions in a set. It's just going to take you longer, and so long as you work that muscle to fatigue, you will get the benefit. So if at 10 I'm still cruising, but 13 I'm working, 14 I'm working hard, and 15 is a struggle, that's fine. But what I would tell you is, unless you got all day long to hang out in the gym, up the weight and get the number of reps in that set down to about 8. You'll be much more efficient and you'll gain strength faster. And you're still not going to hurt yourself.
So it's not really the weight. It's not like going from 3 to 5 to 10. It's whatever works for you as far as fatiguing you.
Correct.
So if 3 fatigues me,
If 3 fatigues
then I
you,
move up to a 5.
yeah.
Okay.
Weight strength training is very individualized. Here's why. I'm 6'2" and weigh 190 pounds, and I was a competitive collegiate swimmer and a water polo player who now row competitively for an over 60 international rowing team. Okay? I don't have the muscle mass I had back in college, but I'm still pretty darn strong. My wife said, you can't do this because men can't do this crazy thing. Put your head on the wall like that. She goes, bend over and pick this thing up off the ground. And I went, okay. She goes, how did you do that? Men aren't supposed to be able to do that. I said, you're right. We're not supposed to because men have a higher center of gravity than women because women have bigger hips. Their center of gravity is lower, and mechanically, they hip hinge way better than we do. Except in competitive rowing, one of our dominant moves is a hip hinge. We use our posterior chain all day long. Or as my wife likes to say, hey, you got good glutes. All right? So sport specificity. But every one of us is different. We're all structurally different. Somebody else is 4'10" and a rower. It's two different bodies. My wife is 5'1". She rows. She rows at 30 strokes per minute. I row at 18. I go a lot faster than she does. I'm more biomechanically efficient. I don't want to do certain things she does, though. She does yoga, turns herself into a pretzel. I tried that once. I thought I was going to spend a week in the hospital. So I don't do yoga. I stretch, but I don't do yoga. So strength training is very individualized. There's no set, everybody's going to start off with 5. No. Everybody's going to start off with 10 pounds. No. Everybody's different.
What about the people who walk and then carry their little weights with them? Does that do anything? And unless it's moving.
Unless the weight's moving, it's not doing much of anything. Now, you want to wear wrist cuff weights, and as you're walking, swing your arms. Okay, you get a little more out of it. Or you want to sit there walking doing this, you get more out of it. But just having them hanging out at your sides, doesn't do anything. Yeah, other than give you swollen hands, because you're probably cutting off your circulation. Make sense? What are important exercises? What are the things that are going to impact on us day to day from a functional perspective? Because getting big biceps was important when you were 20 and going to the beach and you wanted to look good. But it's not really functional and it's not terribly practical. But what's practical? Practical are muscles of stability, muscles that help us with our balance, muscles that help us get up out of a chair and stand up. So it's our tush muscles and our thigh muscles so that we can go down into a squat and come back up. And a great exercise and an easy one is a chair. And this will give you an idea where you are in the process. You get a chair and you put your arms across your chest and you go to sit down. And the question is, can you sit down quietly and not plop into the chair, which tells you have good eccentric muscle control, and then can you come up without having to use your arms? And a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. You suddenly realize you also need to use lower leg muscles. Your tibialis anterior, these guys in the front, and your gastroc, your calf muscles in the back. Your calf muscles are controlling the rate at which your knee bends along with your anterior thigh muscles. And then when I go to stand up, the guys in the front are controlling what your foot's doing on the ground. So that is a phenomenal exercise. Why? It's using every major muscle in the lower half of your body. Now, if you can't... What's that?
How many stands are you doing? How far back from the seat?
Okay, so I don't need you to sit all the way back in the seat. I want you to come down and touch the seat and then reverse and come back up. Without sitting and staying. And you're going to do at least a set of 5, if you can. If you can only do 3, start with 3. If 5 is easy, do 10. Now, I had a patient who's 92 years old. He's a Korean War vet. First time he came to the rehab hospital, he had tripped over his cat and broken his hip. The second time he came to the rehab hospital, he had tripped over the same cat and broken his ankle. I suggested to him he get rid of the cat. But both times, we got him home in 5 days, non-weight bearing on that leg that he had broken, because the surgeons wouldn't let him put any weight on the orthopedic construct they had put together. This is a 92-year-old guy. He got up on a walker, non-weight bearing, and zipped out the door in 5 days. My therapist was like, there's no way he's going home. He's going to have to go to a nursing home. He's 92 years old. And he was like, yeah, to heck with you. Watch. Boom. What was he doing? Turns out he was an ex-military guy. He worked with Sergeant Shriver. Everybody remember Sergeant Shriver? They developed the Peace Corps together. This guy was one tough lunatic. His morning routine, afternoon routine, and evening routine every single day was to do this. He'd get up in the morning, walk into his kitchen, go make a cup of coffee. And while his coffee was brewing, he would put his hands on his kitchen counter, get himself in position, and he would do 10 push-ups on the counter. And then while holding onto the counter, he would do 10 squats. And then he'd bring his cup of coffee to the kitchen table along with his bowl of cereal. And he had a big, heavy kitchen table. He would do 10 more push-ups and 10 more squats. Then he sat down, read his newspaper, drank his coffee, ate his bowl of cereal, brought it back up to the kitchen sink, washed it out, and when he was done, did 10 more of each.
Is there a way where you do the squats wrong, where you could be doing damage to your back?
No, he's using the countertop for support. So he's just hanging on like this. He's about 18 inches away and just comes down. So his thighs are parallel or a little above parallel. We're not going into a deep squat where we're trying to hang out like this all day long. We're just coming down part way. And he did that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 90 squats a day, 90 countertop push-ups a day. This man was 92 years old, and he was strong as a steel pipe.
I don't want to interrupt here, but I know you wanted to get some questions. I know you
Yep.
guys want to be. Want me to get some questions going?
Somebody asked if he did lift weights. Did he lift weights?
That was his weightlifting. That was his weightlifting. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna come out loud and get some questions.
What do you think about creatine for old people?
So creatine for old people, creatine's good for old people and young people. It will help maintain muscle mass and help maintain muscle strength. The only thing you got to look at is periodically get somebody to check your kidney function, because there is some indication in older individuals, as our glomerular filtration rate goes down, that we may start to see some negative impact on kidney function, and serum creatinine will climb a little bit. Usually that's more indicative you just have to hydrate more than anything else. But creatine is perfectly fine for most people, yes.
Someone slipped me a question earlier that's kind of a follow-up on what you got going on there. And they asked, what about collagen and like whey protein?
So collagen has never been shown one way or the other to be helpful in strength training. It doesn't matter whether it's whey protein, pea protein, or anything like that. Increasing your protein intake will help build muscle. Definitely. It is anabolic. Turns out Insulin is also anabolic. So for those of you who are diabetic, the reason you want to exercise is it lets you eat. Eating lets you use your insulin, and insulin is anabolic because it drives glucose into the muscle. That's how it brings the glucose levels down.
We got a question here.
My question is about bone density tests. Over here, behind you.
I'm hearing impaired, so you'll have to.
Well, you figured it out. You referred to different parts of the body having different bone density. So when they do a bone density test and they just are checking out, part of your lower extremities, how can they tell really what your bone density overall is?
Right, so you raise an interesting question. The way the DEXA scans are done is they are really looking at areas that have the highest incidence of developing osteoporosis, and if osteoporosis develops, has the highest likelihood of causing a problem for you. That's why they look at the femoral neck. That's why they look at the lumbar spine, because those are areas that through loading mechanics are more likely to get you into mischief if you develop osteoporosis.
Thoughts on high-protein diets, especially becoming older?
I'm sorry.
Your thoughts on high-protein diets, especially getting older? Natural high protein.
So, in terms of high protein, low carb, high protein. So the question is, truly, what's considered a high protein diet? So if we look at a patient's weight in kilos, we typically think that for people with normal kidney function, to maintain homeostasis, you need about 1 gram minimum per kilo of body weight. So if you weigh 154 pounds, 70 kilos, 70 grams of protein a day.
Healthy for as you age, it's good to have protein.
Very good to have protein, right? Unless you have chronic kidney disease, and even in chronic kidney disease, there's a lot of rethinking going on. We used to say, low protein, low protein, low protein. We're actually letting our patients with CKD, chronic kidney disease, eat more protein because it turns out it's beneficial for a lot of other things. So a very protein-restricted diet is not good. So if you are plant-based in your protein, you've really got to look at your protein and realize you have to eat a variety because you're probably missing certain essential amino acids in a plant protein diet. And that's where beans and legumes start from. You really got to cut, adding soy, adding other things to round out your protein plate, because otherwise you actually don't get the full absorption of the protein.
All right, here's our next question.
Excuse me, going back to the 92-year-old man.
Yeah.
Is it better to do the 10 squats 3 times a day, or can you do 30 all at once?
You can do 30 all at once, however you want to do it. He had just worked out his routine of, I'm going to do 10 in the morning 3 times, 10 in the afternoon 3 times, 10 at night 3 times each. It just gave him, I think being ex-military, he was very patterned and routinized, and he just kind of fell into that routine.
Swimming, does swimming help with strength training?
So I was an ex-collegiate swimmer. All swimmers weightlift. There's a reason why we weightlift, because in the water, we've eliminated most of gravity. It's great for aerobic conditioning. It's not that great by itself for strength training. Now, what we used to do in swimming to add more for strength training in the water, because most swimmers don't like weightlifting either, is you put paddles on your hands so you increase the resistance when you're pulling. But even with that, you've got to weight lift. You can't generate enough resistance to really obviate the need for doing land-based strength training. Yeah, but it's great aerobic.
Can you do the same thing?
All right, hold it.
What do you think about statins?
So statins I'm on a statin because, again, you can't outrun your gene pool. All right? Statins are good. Here's why. Statins will lower your total cholesterol. They will lower your LDLs, and in men, they've actually been shown to raise your HDLs a little bit. However, the downside of statins is your muscles need a certain amount of cholesterol. So if you drop your total cholesterol too low, patients actually notice they have more difficulty doing strength training and they have muscle aches. Now, for a lot of patients, it doesn't mean they have to stop their statin. If they add something like coenzyme Q10, which is a mitochondrial nutrient, that helps mitigate the statin-induced myalgias, and they can continue to take their statin. From a risk-benefit ratio, the data is pretty darn robust that statins are way better for you than letting your cholesterol be sky high. Yeah.
And we got a question. Oh,
Well, you got one here, and then we can go to Aaron.
The strength training, can you do every day or every other day?
So strength training, if you think about your bodybuilders, well, forget about the steroids that they do, because that's not so good. But you can strength train every day, just segregate it out. So one day you do upper body, the next day you do lower body. So Monday could be an upper body routine, Tuesday lower body, Wednesday upper body, Thursday lower body, Friday could be I'm in the swimming pool. And then take a little bit of time off on Saturday and Sunday, go see the grandchildren, things like that, and have some fun. In general, what I tell folks is whether it's aerobic or strength, and you want to do a combination of both, you want to be doing moderate to moderately intense activity about 4 days a week, maximally 5. And there's a reason why. I'm going to go back to this little blackboard for a second. So it turns out Dave Costle's lab, when he started at Penn State before he went to Muncie, Indiana, was looking at a bunch of athletes. And then he was looking at regular people too. And he said, what happens when we have people exercise? What happens to musculoskeletal trauma? And it turns out a funny thing happens. So, days per week. And trauma risk. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 0. So it turns out if you never exercise, you don't traumatize anything. You don't get ALS, but you get all the other stuff too. That's not good. Turns out if we exercise 1 day a week, no real risk for trauma, and we get a little bit of benefit in terms of exercise. 2 days a week, trauma risk really doesn't change, and we get some benefit. 3 days a week, no real change in the trauma risk. It goes up just incrementally a little bit, and everything is good until we get out to 5 days a week. At 5 days a week, that seems to be the break point. And then trauma risk takes off exponentially. Bang, like that. You exercise 6 to 7 days a week intensely, your risk for trauma goes up, and the benefit that you gain in terms of conditioning flattens out. You gain just a little bump more at day 6 and 7. So the people who pediddle around here are your elite athletes. Why? Because that's the group that's willing to accept the risk to gain 6 inches on their shot put throw, because that's the distance difference between gold medaling in the Olympics and finishing as an also-ran. It's the difference between maybe winning your 100-meter dash and never getting out of the qualifying heats. That's not 99.99999% of the population. Most of us do great hanging out at that 4 to 5 day a week, and there's the data to prove it. Okay?
All right, we got one last question here.
You talk about
I'll take
kidney
one more.
disease. Somebody with chronic kidney disease works out 4 days a week. What kind of protein should they be on?
You have CKD, you want to work out 4 days a week, what kind of protein should you be on? I mean, question one is, how bad is your chronic kidney disease, what your serum creatinine runs at?
Kidney disease in the 30 range.
So that's your GFR.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can still eat, you can do a plant-based protein or an animal-based, really doesn't matter. Plant-based proteins may be a little easier on the system, but at the end, protein's protein.
But how much should you take in?
I think you could still safely work at a gram per kilo of body weight. Yeah. If you're trying to build muscle, you want to be more like 1.5 grams. Our burn patients, we get up to 2.5 grams a day. But that's way more than what you need. But 1 gram should be sufficient per kilo. Yes?
Okay, number one, can you tell us who you are and what you do, what you offer? And number two, there needs to be some kind of program for women in town, a bone strengthening for women, and we're only allowed to get DEXA scans once every 2 years, you know, Medicare only.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but we need some kind of system where we can tell, are our bones getting stronger by the exercise and the weight training that we're doing? There needs to be some way to measure all that.
So that's...
We don't have to wait 2 years to get another bone scan, you know what I'm saying?
Right. So, I mean, you bring up some good points. One, endocrinology usually follows the DEXA scans and the such. Two, in terms of a strength training program, that's something you got to do for life. And the strength training is really not different for women than it is for men, because men get osteoporosis too. The only reason we get it at a slightly slower rate is we just have more testosterone running around inside of us. Even as we get older, we still have more testosterone, which helps us maintain a little bit more muscle mass, which helps us maintain bone mass better. In terms of what I do, you don't really want to see me for what I like to do, because what I love to take care of, or who I love to take care of, are people with catastrophic neuromuscular disorders, things like ALS, burn patients, amputees, folks with devastating peripheral neuropathies, and old polio patients who have post-polio syndrome. I am a general physiatrist. My love is neuromuscular disorders. So I tell folks, I said, you want to go through your entire career and never have to get to know me as a physician. Because if you're coming in to see me as a physician for what I love to do, something not so good is going on. Now, you want to hang out socially or have me come and chat with you, I'm more than happy to do that. But you don't really want to have to see me for what I love to do.